If the Liver King's results were actually achievable by just taking the supplements, then why was he still eating organs?
He is a sad little bitch who went to a marketing agency and was like, I want more followers. And they were like, do wild shit on the internet. And he was like, okay. And then what happened when everyone found out he was shooting up steroids? He lost his mind.
I feel like he probably was already part of the way there with the $11,000 worth of steroids a month.
It's not good for the brain.
And welcome back. You're listening to Hysteria, the podcast that will never encourage you to eat raw organs.
Disgusting.
Did you watch any videos of the Liver King?
I watched some. Okay.
There's a lot of yardage in that word. Like, what do you mean? Like like 3 or some like 30?
Some like 1. Okay.
And you were like, I get it.
I was like, I'm picking up what they're putting down. Not a lot needed here.
Uh-huh. So we here at Hysteria are gluttons for punishment, and
we can't get enough.
We can't get enough of it. We've got an eye on the culture that is pushing this country in a terrible direction. As you'll hear in my interview that I'm about to do, in one way we're encouraging women to like be homemakers and live soft lives, and another way that culture is pushing us in an undesirable direction is this kind of new masculinity.
Alleged masculinity
that is very performative, very much a scam.
Not what I would call masculine.
And very much perpetuated. It's like it's drag, essentially.
Yeah, totally.
It is like a performance of masculinity that involves things like training to be a fighter.
Yes.
When the biggest fight that you're going to have is with traffic getting into San Francisco.
Or your steroid dealer.
Yeah, or like the fight to get a good deal on your brand new Porsche Cayenne. Like you're not a fighter. This is not a world for fighting. We don't currently have a war that welcomes 45-year-old tech execs. So they're training for fights. The boys are fighting. There's a New York Times feature out this week on tech bros and crypto bros who are spending tons of money on participating in the martial arts like it is the 1980s, and they just saw the Karate Kid and they're begging their dad to let them join a dojo. I find this kind of whole masquerade by these guys who are extreme inside boys deciding that they want to be strong men very pathetic, but also telling about the direction the culture is going. I think the physical fitness is great, and I think it should be encouraged, and I think that we should do things structurally as a society that encourage and invite people to be more physically active. Like we should design cities around something that isn't cars. We should like encourage walking breaks and we should make it affordable for people to work out at gyms. We should make public spaces welcoming for people to like move around and exercise and go outside. And I support the idea of like promoting physical fitness and for people to get up and move to the extent that they can. That's good. But I think getting together and like having big punching matches, like we can't help but notice that like mixed martial arts, like MMA and the manosphere and tech crypto bros, it's all kind of become this ugly little glob that still offers no value to women. How, Alyssa, do you think that the tech bro push to like become a fighter, what do you think that says about this current moment? And what do you think it says about masculinity?
I got to tell you, I listened to the Zuck interview on Rogan back in the fall, where all they did was talk about their fighting and their jujitsu and all that shit. And Zuck goes on to say so many classic things. One, he's so out of his depth that it's so clear he is like trying to play a part. And Joe Rogan is actually the real thing. Like I give it to Joe Rogan. It's who he is fundamentally, right?
That is a legitimate interest that a person can have, right?
Right.
I think that these guys are wearing it like a costume though. Where they're like, if I put this on.
Because every question Joe Rogan asked him when they got into the fighting, the bulking up, the working out of it all, Zuck got like this different tone in his voice. Like he kept being worried about what the next question was going to be because he like really didn't know the people.
He was studying.
He
studied for
Joe
some
Rogan was like, and then there's this guy, you know him, right? And he's like, yeah. He's like, he had no fucking idea who this like very famous fighter was, right? But in the interview, Zuck goes on to say how his wife, like when he hasn't done his like training, boxing, jujitsu, whatever it is for the day, he's like, she likes it so much better when I go do it. Cause I'm like, I get all my aggression out and I'm like a better person later. And like when he's going to have a really bad day at work, like he goes and does this because it like gets it all out. Really? You're having such high stakes. You can't even figure out how to get disinformation off your fucking website. Like you're having such high stakes days at the office that you can't get it, like you can't sort it out. I think they're all very boring. It's like they just found something and they're like, I don't know. They're not even interested. Like I try to relate it to something, and it's not even like when I tried to do pole dancing back in the early 2000s, you know what I mean? Because I was like in on the fucking joke, you know what I mean? I was Hannah Horvath doing pole dancing, and yeah. I knew that. And he's like not in on it, and he is Hannah Horvath trying to do jujitsu, and he just doesn't know it. And it's not making him a better, more interesting person. You know, these people, these places that he wants to play in, they accept him because he's rich, not because he suddenly has a thick neck.
I mean, it reminds me of something that the worst person that I ever dated said to me that is nevertheless incredibly true. And that is, the smart girls want to be pretty and the pretty girls want to be smart. And by that, he means that everyone focuses on their problem areas. A lot of people can be won over by being told that there's something that they're insecure about not being. Right? Like, totally. and I think these tech bros joining these fighting leagues, not because they like enjoy it and it's a personal thing. They join fighting leagues because they want to show people something. They want to prove something. It is like them performing a thing that they've always been told that they aren't or they can't have. And it feels like I think that not to be an armchair psychologist, but it feels very like psychologically revealing. Like you are doing this because you want people to look at you and say, you're somebody that does this. You're a strong, tough man. But like, is there anything, I will posit this. In our culture, there is something very feminine about doing something to be looked at. In our culture. I'm not saying that that's good. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. But like to be a woman is to be looked at, and to do something as a man for the purposes of being looked at, I think that's girly. I think it's girly.
I co-sign. I agree with you on that.
I think it's girly. I think that there's nothing wrong with taking care of yourself and wanting to be strong and wanting to feel at home in your body. That's great. Love it for you. But like, why am I looking at it? Why do I need to see it?
And you know what? Here's the other thing I would say, back to the Zuck Rogan interview, is he talks about how the world needs to be more masculine. He doesn't define, he kind of just defines it as muscly, right? It needs to be. Guys got like 2-3 daughters who are going to hear this someday? Is that fucking masculine? Saying that your daughters are like, that people should be less like them? I thought that was pretty fucking dumb.
It's almost a tired trope, but I feel like it's a trope because there's some like truth at the base of it. The trope that like a woman will be getting ready for a party and a man will be like, I'm gonna go mow the lawn, or like goes and does some like side quest that is not part of getting ready for the party. Like right now we're sort of at a gender relations crisis, right? We're like trying to get ready for this new reality of living in like an era of climate change, of living in an era of rising global fascism, of media factionalism, of like the obfuscation of truth itself. We're all trying to prepare for that. And men are like, I'm going to join an MMA league. You're fucking weed whacking at a time like this? Really? Like we need you to focus on like being better members of society, of contributing to your families if you choose to have families, of like being helpful, useful contributors. We don't need you punching things. This is not
or
not
at least
the time.
Don't make it your whole fucking personality.
It's not helping. That's the thing. Like it's fine. It's a leisure thing, but like that's not what we need you to be doing right now.
No.
We need you to be coming up with solutions to problems. I thought you were problem solvers. Doesn't your company exist to solve problems?
No.
Aren't you problem solvers? This is not.
He's a problem maker, actually.
You are washing the car and our 6-year-old's party is in an hour, okay? Like, do what we need you to do. Hysteria is brought to you by Quince. Alyssa, I have been pregnant or postpartum for the last, like, what feels like 4 years. And so my clothing, my summer clothing, is from, like, a long time. It's, like, dated at this point.
It's time for a refresh.
It's time for a refresh. And Quince is giving me a chance to do a little refresh, move into the summer, move into this next season of my life, feeling great, not completely breaking the bank, and looking timeless and stylish. Like, you can get 100% European linen shorts and dresses for $30, luxe swimwear, Italian leather platform sandals. There's also more. The best part, everything with Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than what you'd find at similar brands.
By working directly with top artisans and cutting out the middlemen, Quince gives you luxury without the markup. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes.
Treat your closet to a little summer glow up with Quince. Go to quince.com/hysteriapod for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/hysteriapod to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/hysteriapod.
Hysteria is brought to you by Honeylove. Spring's here, and you know what that means. Wedding season is officially in full swing. I was just at a wedding last week. Whether you're attending a bridal shower, bachelorette party, or the big day itself, it's time to get dressed up again, and a great outfit always starts with great shapewear. Let's be real. No one has time for shapewear that feels uncomfortable or restrictive. Luckily, you don't have to settle for that. Today's episode is brought to you by Honeylove, the brand that's setting a new standard for shapewear. Honeylove uses targeted compression to sculpt and smooth where you want it and ease off where you don't. That means it's super effective and comfortable to wear all day long. It's shapewear that works with your body, not against it. The difference? You'll feel it and see it immediately. Plus, flexible boning in the side seams prevents it from rolling up or down, so you'll never have to sneakily adjust yourself in public again, even after a night of dancing. Their shapewear features lingerie-inspired design details that you'll want to show off. So if you've got weddings on the brain this season, Honeylove has got you covered, literally.
And here's the best part. For a limited time, you can get Honeylove on sale. Save 20% off your entire order with our exclusive link, honeylove.com/hysteria. Support the show and start your summer off right by checking them out at honeylove.com/hysteria. I'm going to say this about Honeylove, Alyssa. It is the only shapewear that I will wear.
I agree with that. And I wore some to the wedding.
Yeah? Were you comfortable the whole time?
I was curious if I would be. It was a real test because I was in the car 2 hours to the wedding, then at the wedding, then the car 2 hours home.
Whoa.
And unlike previous shapewear, it did not roll down my belly. You know, when your belly starts to revolt and it's like, no more.
Yes.
And it just, it didn't do that.
And Honeylove isn't just shapewear. They also have really comfy bras. They have a bra called the crossover bra that gives you the support of a traditional bra without using any underwires. It's a bra that you'll actually enjoy wearing and won't want to take off. I can attest to that. I have fallen asleep in mine and not woken up in the middle of the night feeling like I was in some sort of torture device. I've just been like, oh, I slept in this bra. Treat yourself to the most comfortable shapewear on earth and save 20% off site-wide at honeylove.com/hysteria. Use our exclusive link to get 20% off, honeylove.com/hysteria. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Experience the new standard in shapewear with Honeylove. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Liver King. All these manly men, and especially young men. I don't want to like totally make fun of them. I think that like you're a young guy, you're just like trying to figure out what the world is and you want to look a certain way. I think with a little bit of exposure to the world that doesn't give you any savviness, you might fall prey to a lot of the scammers that are out there. One such scammer or grifter is a man that we are calling, that calls himself the Liver King. Alyssa, before this, had you heard of the Liver King?
I had not heard of the Liver King.
So
Blessedly.
the Liver King is a pinkish purple man.
He is, indeed.
An influencer who would show himself like performing bizarre feats of strength. And he said that he was eating a diet of liver, bull testicles, and animal blood. He said he was built the way he was built because that's what he was eating. But of course, normal people can't hack it. They're not going to like bathe in animal blood and be like, like eat a primitive diet or like as he described. So what he did was say that you actually can have the same results of what I'm doing by taking these supplements that I'm selling. He built $100 million business selling ancestral living supplements with his larger-than-life content. But it fell apart when it was revealed that he was actually injecting himself with $11,000 worth of steroids
What do you
a
know?
month. There's a new Netflix documentary with a Tiger King-like feel that kind of highlights his rise to fame and how toxic male role models can be basically manufactured on the basis of marketable lies. Alyssa, I have a question for you. If the Liver King's results were actually achievable by just taking the supplements, then why was he still eating organs? Like, you could just take the
Do you
supplements,
want to know why?
dude. Why?
Because do you know how the Liver King was born? The Liver King went to an ad agency. Here's something that's so masculine for you. The Liver King went to an ad agency because he wanted 1 million followers.
Okay.
And according to The Independent, once the Liver King was comfortable with bench pressing underwater and aiming firearms at veggie burgers, the ad agency knew he was able to produce snackable content perfect for social media. The Liver King's feats were, he said, acts of meticulous architecture, said the marketing agency. Erin, he is a sad little bitch who went to a marketing agency and was like, I want more followers. And they were like, do wild shit on the internet. And he was like, okay, that's all he is.
I mean, a lot of times these people that suddenly pop up and are everywhere it's not an accident. There's very little organic virality.
And then what happened when everyone found out he was shooting up steroids? He lost his mind.
He went crazy. I feel like he probably was already part of the way there with the $11,000 worth of steroids a month.
It's not good for the brain.
That'll get you part of the way there, for sure. Like, that is not a sustainable amount of steroids.
No.
I wanted to talk about this guy just because I think he is maybe a more extreme example of something that's being sold to young men. And also another example of, like, no woman is asking for you to do this. Nobody is. If you're, like, looking to attract women.
Not even his liver queen.
Yeah, is she officially a queen?
She's liver
or
queen.
Or a queen consort?
She goes by liver queen.
Oh, okay. She goes by queen.
FYI.
That's her official royal. Yeah. Does she use the HRH on?
We'll have to ask Charles about that.
If the Liver King, he's got sons, right? If the Liver King's sons were to marry people that the family disapproved of, could we see the Liver King's sons and the new wife going to another country and maybe the Liver Princess starting a lifestyle brand that a lot of people make fun of?
If someone else tries to get in on my jam, I'm going to be real mad.
They're making animal organ jam. They're making
sausage. Liver
jam. Oh yeah, sausage is kind of liver jam, isn't it? That's
Kinda.
Gross.
I'm sorry, Liz.
Oh, why did I say that? I hate that. You and I both subscribed recently to a anti-feminist, like right-wing magazine.
I still haven't gotten my magazine, by the way.
Oh my God, go to the website and request it.
I'm going
Post haste. Because otherwise, if you don't get it soon, I'm going to literally scan every single page and send you and print it out and FedEx it to you so you get like a version. Yeah, it's very glossy, it's very beautiful, but it's very well moneyed. There is a lot of money behind selling different versions of masculinity and femininity, and some of it is being sold specifically for like selfish reasons. Like the Liver King wanted to get rich by selling this, right? But there's something more insidious going on with other ways that femininity and masculinity are being packaged and sold to us right now. In some contexts, it's part of a larger right-wing plot, and I know I sound like I'm wearing a tinfoil hat right now.
No, it's out in the open.
It's part of a larger right-wing plot to sell something that made a lot of people sad in the 50s and then again in the 80s. It's trying to finesse a return to a single income household and finesse this like concept of an emotionally distant, emotionless man who participates in his family by earning money, and that's it. Like it's trying to bring us back to something, and I think that like the more cognizant of the bullshit we all are, the more we can at least be beacons of don't fall for it in our own lives and among our own like male relatives.
I'm just sitting here looking at pictures of the Liver King. This is what you've done to me.
You're gonna get served up some strange ads.
I know. Believe me, my Instagram's gonna be so fucked now after this.
I'm sorry. You're gonna have to uninstall it and reinstall it.
I'm gonna have to because this is. I can't get over it now. I have so many tabs of Liver King open.
I had to uninstall and reinstall TikTok because I kept looking at the Yellowstone National Park TikTok page.
Yeah.
That has the OnlyFans model at the beginning, and then it transitions to a picture. So I was going to all the different national park TikToks because they all were doing that. They were all like putting thirst traps at the beginning of the videos, and it was like a very funny repeated joke. But then I started getting served up that person's videos, and I like, no disrespect, earn your money, my friend, but like I just was like, why? I don't want my feed to be dominated by this. Come on. So I had to uninstall TikTok and reinstall it because my algorithm got all messed up because of the national parks. And it's going to happen to you too because of Liver King. Anyway, don't fall for it. Don't fall for the Liver King. He looks like that because he's been taking steroids.
And he doesn't even look like that anymore. He's a wreck.
No. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I interview the author of Girl on Girl, How Pop Culture Turned a Generation of Women Against Themselves, Sophie Gilbert. Stick around. And welcome back. You're listening to Hysteria, the podcast for people who survived the year 2007 and lived to tell the tale. Our guest today is a staff writer at The Atlantic, a Pulitzer Prize finalist, and author of the new book, Girl on Girl, How Pop Culture Turned a Generation of Women Against Themselves. Sophie Gilbert, welcome to Hysteria.
Thank you so much for having me.
First of all, thank you for writing the book. I finished it. I loved it. You've been writing about feminist issues for years. What gave you the idea for this book specifically?
It was sort of this moment in time when I think my stories all seem to be circling the same period, the late 90s, the 2000s. There seemed to be something there that hadn't quite been, or was, there was a lot of sort of reconsideration of the era happening in culture. I think certainly of the late 90s, of people like Monica Lewinsky and Tonya Harding, and then of Britney Spears. And I just felt like there was a lot, I think, that had happened to me personally during this era that I hadn't quite ever come to terms with. And then after Roe v. Wade was overturned, it just seemed to me that we had had this period of, I don't need to tell you guys, but this period of real profound backlash, and the progress that I had assumed I think would be inevitable in my life seemed out of reach. And very smart people were passing the politics of that moment, but it seemed to me to make sense to look at the culture that had shaped, I think, millennial women and also Gen Z women, and to see what happened to us during that era, how it defined us, what it made us think of ourselves and of other women.
Yeah, there's been a lot of, we were born the same year, you and I. And
oh, wow.
I feel like there is a lot of like unfucking of my head that has had to take place. And it seems from reading the book that 2007, I never put together all of these pieces of like just horrible things in retrospect that happened in 2007. It was kind of the apex of an expression of like hating women in popular culture that was building for some time. Can you talk a little bit about what happened in 2007?
Yeah, so the reason I came to realize this was because I was writing about the Anna Nicole Smith documentary on Netflix, and realized that within like a few weeks of her death, I think, was Britney shaving her head. And I just did not remember those two events happening in such kind of close quarters together in history. But I did remember 2007 being this very chaotic year. And then when I went back, it was just like this long rolling list of sort of drama for women in the public eye, and of crisis, I think we can see now, of profound mental health crisis. But it was obviously Britney being stalked by paparazzi, Anna Nicole Smith. I think that was the year that Paris Hilton went to jail. It was the year that Lindsay Lohan went to rehab. Like, there was just this nonstop TikTok coverage of very famous women falling apart in public, and obviously the public nature of that exacerbating the crisis that they were going through. But I realized in my research it was also the year that Hillary Clinton announced she was running for president for the first time. And it just made me think, like, what did it mean to me in this moment? Like, what did I think women were capable of when everywhere I looked, there was this sort of nonstop barrage of women seeming to sort of fail as publicly and as dramatically as they could.
You also write about how in 2007, around that time, there was like disgust, like open contempt and disgust aimed at female celebrities. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I remembered, I think, pieces of it. And some of the tenor of it, I think we've revisited. Amanda Hess wrote a really good piece for the New York Times about revisiting the Britney Spears VMAs performance from 2008, and how horrific it seemed in the sort of modern context of this 25-year-old woman being forced to do a sexy dance, was her term, I think, so she could keep her children. But I remembered the cruelty, and yet when I went back to research the language that was used on blogs like Perez Hilton, and also in places like TMZ, there was a blog called Hollywood Tuna that was particularly cruel. And there was this real sense of vitriol, but also, as you said, disgust that was aimed at these women, and this sense that they were failing at the project of celebrity, they were failing at the project of womanhood. And despite the fact, I think, that many of these women were famous because we just could not stop looking at them and we could not stop reading about them, and we were fascinated with these details of their lives in a really kind of prurient way. We were also, I think, in some ways sick of them. And that element of overexposure, I think, seemed to come through in this language of disgust, like this real tenor of taking them apart. And it's been interesting. I think I've learned more recently that disgust is actually a very powerful emotion politically, because it tends to be associated with more conservative worldviews. Like if you feel disgusted by something, you're much less open-minded about it. You're much more judgmental in your thinking. And so it was particularly interesting for me, I think, more recently to see the same language of disgust being used against, say, Kamala Harris in 2024, and certainly against Hillary Clinton in 2016.
Hysteria is brought to you by Nutrafol. Hot days, humid nights, and nonstop plans. All that heat can increase hair shedding, while a packed schedule can add stress, which can impact your hair. Nutrafol's whole body approach and clinically tested formulas support your hair from within, so you can focus on living your best life all summer long. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand, trusted by over 1.5 million people. See thicker, stronger, faster growing hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol.
Thinning hair is different for men and women, so a one-size-fits-all approach to hair growth doesn't cut it. Nutrafol has multiple formulas for men and women that are tailored to different life stages, like postpartum or menopause. I use the postpartum one, and I gotta say, it's really nice to not have like clumps of hair falling out of my head anymore.
Look at my menopause-supported hair.
Like, that's a real thing that happens after you have a baby.
Yes.
You get like a hormone crash, and then like your hair starts falling off. And it's very disturbing. Since I've started taking Nutrafol like 3-4 months ago, it has stopped. I'm not.
Your hair looks
anymore.
gorgeous.
I'm not shedding anymore, and it really.
The proof is on your head.
The proof is in the pudding. Building a hair growth routine is easy. Order online, no prescription needed. Enjoy free shipping, automated deliveries, and up to 20% savings with a Nutrafol subscription. Plus, get free naturopathic doctor consults and a Headspace meditation membership.
Start your hair growth journey with Nutrafol. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month's subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code Hysteria10. Find out why Nutrafol is the best-selling hair growth supplement brand at Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code Hysteria10. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code Hysteria10.
Hysteria is brought to you by Ritual. My local grocery store is a little bit of a crunchy grocery store. I like it.
Me
It's
too.
a good grocery store, but there's like 3 aisles of supplements.
There are so many supplements
There are
out
so
there.
many of them, and some of them are just like not even words. It's just like a series of letters and numbers, and I'm like, I don't know. Do I need this?
You're like, is this for me or the cat?
That's why I need something as simple as possible, and I need something that has an actual proven track record and that isn't backed up by just like vibes, you know?
We need more than vibes
We
in
need
our
more
bodies.
than vibes in our bodies. That's why clean supplement company Ritual has pledged to complete clinical trials on all of its products by 2030, with trials already done for best-selling products like their Essential for Women 18 Plus multivitamin and skin hydration supplement Hysteria. You can see all the results and learn more about Ritual's commitment to clinical trials at ritual.com.
Erin, I love my Essential for 18 and over women. I take it every morning. It doesn't give me a stomach ache. That's the biggest problem when I try to take vitamins. Most of them you have to take with food in your stomach or something, or you get a stomach ache all day, and not these. You sit down, you have your water, you take your supplement, little minty fresh aftertaste. One and done. Never forget.
One and done. You never forget. You take care of, the gaps that you might have in your nutrition. You make sure that your body has what it needs. Their Essential for Women 18 Plus contains 9 key nutrients in 2 delayed release capsules designed for optimal absorption per day. It's designed to be gentle on the stomach, like you said, Alyssa, with a minty essence in every bottle that helps make taking your Maltese actually enjoyable. It's also third-party tested for heavy metals and clean label project certified, so you know you can trust what you're putting in your body. Ritual multivitamins are vegan, non-GMO project verified, gluten and major allergen free, and made traceable.
No more shady business. Ritual's Essential for 18 Women and Over is a multivitamin you can actually trust. Get 25% off your first month only at ritual.com/hysteria. Start Ritual or add Essential for Women 18 and Over to your subscription today. That's ritual.com/hysteria for 25% off.
You know, we've been talking about the Diddy trial on this podcast, and you know, it's some of the information that is coming to light and some of the testimony. I couldn't help but think as I was reading your book, like some of the events that are being discussed in the Diddy trial were happening behind the scenes, parallel to things that you write about in your book. Have you been following the trial, and does it give you more context to some of the cultural events that you were writing about?
I have been following the trial. The allegations against him, unfortunately, arrived just after the book was finished. So I think I was able to add like one parens in one chapter noting it was in the music chapter in the 90s, just because he had such power in the industry. And that, I think, is the thing that is really astonishing to me now. When you think about people like him and Harvey Weinstein, it's not just the power that they had over other artists, it's the power that they had over all of us, like over our imagination, over our sense of desire, like our sense of pleasure. I mean, this real, the way that they all colored the sort of landscape that we grew up against, I think has been really striking to me now in terms of I love the word unfucking. I tend to use the word unlearning because I'm not often allowed to swear. But the same process is, so much of it is like understanding the ways in which these men shaped our childhoods, our youth, our teenage years, our like the stories that really help define us all. I think that's the thing that is so striking to me.
Yeah, and I mean, Diddy was a producer on one of the albums that you mentioned in the music chapter that was like, you single out as being an example of like feminist art. So and Harvey Weinstein was also like very influential in making movies that sometimes dictated what we thought feminism was, what we thought empowerment was. And it's really messed up to look back and be like, oh, okay. Oh, I guess P. Diddy was behind that, and he was doing all these horrible things at the same time that he was pushing this piece of art into the public that like was actually helping people. He was like doing it. It is a real, like, it's a mind fuck. You also write about how girl power went from a serious political statement to a hollow marketing tool. I'm just going to read a paragraph from your book that really, like, it was in an early chapter and it really stuck with me. You write, for millennial girls, buying things was suddenly being presented as a political act, one that negated the need for other kinds of activism. To invert a quote from The Handmaid's Tale, the riot girl movement wanted women to have freedom from sexual violence, abuse, injustice, fear. The Spice Girls embodied freedom too. Have fun, earn money, pursue pleasure. There are no prizes for deducing which ideology was easier to package and sell. That paragraph kind of, every single chapter had a moment where it felt like something was actually being distilled into the fluffiest, most marketable possible component of any advancement and sold back to us. Is there any avoiding the collapse of female advancement into a marketing tool? Like, has any movement that has become popular among women escaped this fate?
It was so striking to me in that chapter, because I was curious about how we got from girl power in terms of the ways in which like Bikini Kill used it. The idea was that they would put two words together that no one would naturally associate, and there was a real agenda in doing that. Like the words girl and power, they put together, they were supposed to make you think about why we wouldn't put those words together, why they don't naturally seem to align. And there was so much sort of force behind that, and so much activism and so much intention. And then the Spice Girls came along, obviously, and they reclaimed the slogan girl power. But the ways in which they used it, it just didn't mean anything anymore. And then, as you mentioned, they were just these incredibly powerful, like, salespeople. One fact I found for the book that really blew my mind was that within their first year and a half as a band, they had $500 million worth of branding and commercial deals. Someone told me while I was doing short book tour that they had a Spice Girls toaster. I mean, it was just like this real, anything you could buy, I think, in the mid-90s that had a Spice Girls logo on it. And what that did was reveal to people in power how powerful teenage girls were as a demographic, and how much spending money they had, because, you know, they had babysitting money, they had jobs, like short part-time jobs. They didn't have mortgages. They loved to spend money at the mall. And once brands figured that out, I think it was really the end of everything, because it just made people see how powerful teenage girls could be as salespeople. And and how basically there was a huge demographic that would buy anything that was sold to them by these particularly sexy and fun to watch teenagers. Is there a way to escape it? I mean, I was talking about this earlier because it's so interesting to me that all the sort of self-made female billionaires are making their fortunes on the back of beauty brands, and we seem so susceptible to beauty brands. And I personally, I know I'm very susceptible, especially in my 40s. Like, please God, get rid of my eye bags. But I do think the only way that we'll ever sort of unlearn it is to just be aware, that these things are always going to be sold to us with the insinuation that we ourselves are not enough. And when you start to see that and to question it in media and in marketing, it sort of feels like a small kind of power.
I have to say, Sophie, reading this book was like a crazy experience for me because, like I said, we were born the same year, and I feel like we were living parallel lives during the duration of the book. Like, I was working at Jezebel when the publication put out a bounty for the unretouched Lena Dunham photo from Vogue that you mentioned in the chapter about girl on girls. I interviewed a woman that Terry Richardson, she alleged that Terry Richardson had assaulted her. I reviewed the book Girl Boss for the New York Times. When I was reading it at the time, I remember thinking, like, this is really trite, but I didn't want to be mean because I was scared of Sophia Amoruso. Like, she seemed like she would come at me because she'd come at one of my coworkers at Jezebel before, and I was like, I don't want to. Listen, lady, I don't want any fight with you. I was writing for Best Week Ever when Amanda Bynes was having her breakdown, and that felt weird that we were like dogpiling on her because she was clearly not okay. I had friends that were targeted by Gamergate, which you also write about. You quoted like several of my former coworkers in your book. I felt like I was reading a book about a life that me and so many other millennial women had lived, and each chapter kind of was messed up in ways that I like either didn't fully understand, or that I'd forgotten, or that I'd never fully acknowledged. Like, what chapter for you was the most jarring to revisit with adult eyes?
Yeah, I think it was chapter 6 is definitely the darkest chapter in the book. And I wanted to say too, like, Jezebel was so ahead of the curve on reporting on Terry Richardson. Every time I go back now and look for stories and look for people who were sort of talking about him during this era, it was basically Jezebel. Like, they were really kind of leading the charge on just like the stories that people were telling about him for a very, very, very long time that didn't seem to matter, I would say, for the good part of a decade until finally they did. But chapter 6 is about this shift towards extremity in all kinds of different media over the course of the 2000s. And I think I start with the movie Hostel, which I had seen years ago, but I hadn't watched in ages. And it was interesting to kind of understand just how not explicitly pornographic it is, but how sort of eroticized the violence is almost. But also I learned that the Hostel movies were produced by Mike Fleiss, the creator of The Bachelor, so that kind of sets off.
That guy's everywhere.
He really is. And he's also the cousin of Heidi Fleiss, the Hollywood Madam. So there are all these like ding-dong moments.
Wow.
Also the shift towards extremity that was happening in pornography at the time, as sort of culture at large got more sexualized. Porn had to become more extreme to get people to keep paying for it, basically, was the thing that surprised me most about that chapter. And you can really see this shift from the photography of Terry Richardson and the thumbs up and the aviators. When I went back to revisit the photos from Abbey Grabe, like, they just looked like Terry Richardson pictures to me. There was a man in aviator glasses giving the thumbs up with this like very winking smile next to, you know, the most horrendous abuses being meted out against Iraqi prisoners. And so much of that visual language of male dominance and of male supremacy, of like very sexualized male dominance, seemed to have come not just from porn, but also from this mode of photography that people like Terry Richardson were popularizing. And then the thing that really, I think, shocked me was finding an American Apparel ad from 2010 that actually imitated one of the pictures of Abu Ghraib by staging female models in a human pyramid.
Oh, Jesus.
And that was just the moment when you're like, oh, God.
Oh, wow.
So much of this was, I think, infiltrating our minds and our consciousnesses at the time, and it seems so transparently abusive now and so transparently offensive. But at the time, I think because it was edgy, because it was ironic, because it was provocative, because we were all trying hard to be, I think, cool with what was happening to us in that era, it felt very hard to sort of fight back against.
Yeah, I mean, Female Chauvinist Pigs came out in like 2005, and it made a big splash, and a lot of people read it, people were talking about it, and then culture just continued on its way. It continued kind of toward that path of degradation and feeling like you needed to be okay with it or participate in it as a woman so that you could be like a cool girl. You could be one of the girls that was cool and got to hang out with the guys, and one that was like didn't take herself too seriously. You cite Susan Faludi a lot in the book, and you make frequent references to the central thesis of her 1991 book, Backlash. You add your own observations of advancement followed by a sort of cultural clawback. Faludi wrote her book in 1991, and here we are like decades later in another clawback era again. Are we going to just repeat this cycle forever?
It's really, oh God, it was so depressing when I went back to read Backlash, and she was talking about this moment of, I think she calls it the new traditionalism that happened in the late 80s post-AIDS, where magazines like Good Housekeeping were sort of urging women to return to the home, but couched in this very like nostalgic language of things were just better when women, my mother was at home and she made dinner every night and she wrote Christmas cards by hand, like this very kind of gauzy, tradwifey imagery that was being used in the ads, and it just felt so familiar to right now. And I just felt like, God, obviously this message is always going to appeal to some women, and that I think is never going to change. And we're always kind of going to, I guess, engage with it as spectators, partly out of a kind of element of wanting to understand the other side. Like when I watch people like Ballerina Farm on Instagram, it really is kind of, I feel like I'm kind of gawking at zoo animals in a way, like the way that people will make every element of a meal from scratch. It feels like a sort of astonishing throwback moment, like I'm watching a Victorian drama. Are we ever going to escape the cycle? I mean, I sort of have to remind myself, and certainly I've been trying to sort of express in interviews that I did not feel all that bleak at the end of the book. I mean, obviously the election was a blow, but when you look at culture and the culture that we have being made for us right now, it is so much better than what we had in the 2000s. There are so many movies being made about that are not like in the 2000s. There were no women in movies whatsoever. Like women were scolds, women were shrews, women were like sexy wives who didn't want their husbands to go to Vegas. It was like very, very narrow portrayals of womanhood in the 2000s, if women were present at all. Whereas like looking at the Golden Globes this year, you just had all these women in their 40s, 50s, 60s doing the work of their lives in so many ways, like movies about the transition into motherhood and how crazy that can make you, in like Night Bitch or The Substance, which I know is controversial in many ways, but just a movie that is willing to engage with the insanity of beauty culture and the horror of the sort of ordeals that it puts women through in order to fit into this mold. And Demi Moore, I think, came up in every chapter of my book because she always seemed to be connecting with different ideas about what women are supposed to be in any given era. And so to see her in her 60s, like winning an award and finally getting acclaim for her talent and not for her sex appeal was really powerful to me. And then with TV shows recently like Dying for Sex, which treat the subject of female desire as its own thing, like not as women sort of performing for men sexually throughout their lives and that being what defines us, but as this question of a woman thinking about what do I actually want, what do I actually need. That to me feels so different. And so while we do have all these messages that are this really sort of cartoonish misogyny that's flaring up in different elements of the internet, the culture, I would say, writ large, is not affirming those messages. If anything, it's contradicting them. And that feels cheerful to me.
Well, that is a great note to end on. Sophie Gilbert, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for writing the book. Listeners, Girl on Girl, How Pop Culture Turned a Generation of Women Against Themselves is available in bookstores everywhere. I would offer to lend you my copy, but I have like 5 people that are like lined up to borrow my copy. Thank you so much for joining me.